Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. In a couple of days, the 56th World Economic Forum will open in the Swiss resort of Davos, with leaders across sectors attending. As you have been telling you, Arise News will be front seat at the forum, and Nigeria will be represented again, this time at a grander scale, with the launch of the Nigerian House on Monday, the 19th of January. The objective of this expanded representation in Davos remains constant attraction of foreign investors. Being able to accomplish this objective, however, has become incrementally difficult owing to a number of challenges, including insecurity and lives and property. On the brighter side, however, headline inflation is gradually getting back into safe territory, according to latest figures from the National Bureau of Statistics. However, with partisan politics gaining momentum ahead of the next general election planned for February and March of 2027, how should President Bola Tinubu and his team approach the management of the nation's economic governance variables going forward? Well, joining us now to offer his thoughts on this matter is Malam Yusuf, a strategist, policy advisor, public intellectual, and Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company. Good morning, sir. It's good to have you here back on the morning show.
Thank you very much, Diswa and Temitokwe. It's good to be here, and Happy New Year to you and our viewers.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Now let's get straight into this. Headline inflation is said to have reduced to 15.15% in December, showing a positive macroeconomic trends for Nigeria. How do you feel about these new figures, and how realistic is it to the average Nigerian that inflation is reducing?
Thank you very much. Well, it's good news when we hear verbally that inflation is reducing. It's also interesting that the latest World Bank report gave a very positive outlook, 4.4% growth expected 2026 moving into 2027. However, there are some caveats. In your opening remarks, you mentioned the fact that in 2026 we are moving into an election period, and I believe that the macroeconomic indicators that we keep on reeling out are very important, very important. However, what is crucial are the microeconomic indicators and the impacts, on the common man in Nigeria. The World Bank report also, gave an exclamation mark with regards to increased escalation of poverty in northeastern Nigeria. And we should not forget, the numbers of over 144 million multidimensionally poor Nigerians has not really significantly scaled down, even by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. So these are crucial points we need to take note of while we are celebrating this growth and the inflationary trends, which to me is a quarter-to-quarter indicator. But wholesome, 2025, moving into 2026, what are the overall performances, macro and micro? And then what should we do to ensure that the average Nigerians is really feeling the impacts of those indicators we are talking about, and to hedge against escalation of poverty, like mentioned by the World Bank in Northeast, or other issues you talked about, insecurity. During the conversations, we can espouse on how we should be able to get out of this doldrum, rather than sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step backward.
Now, do you think Nigeria's current fiscal and monetary policies are sufficiently coordinated to attract and retain investment, or are policy contradictions still a major concern?
Thank you very much for that question, Temitokwe. I have been consistent to say that there is a gap between we need to properly align our fiscal policy and monetary policy. But more importantly, so that we can, contextualize this conversation now. Part of what the World Bank mentioned, which we have consistently mentioned at Global Investment and Trade Company, GITC, is that fiscal discipline has been the bane of our economy, not just in this administration, but in successive administrations. And that is why sustainability has not been there. That is why we've not been able to achieve that level of growth and consistency. Of course, fiscal discipline talks about how we spend how we, first of all, rein in the income, how we spend the money, what are our priorities, issues of budget padding, issues of, how do we do our capital expenditure. Currently, we have 3 different budgets we are executing, for the same year. Are we going to streamline that for this year? And these things are adding up. I mean, interestingly, we have we heard the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Chief Wale, would be mentioning that they've earmarked 1.8 trillion to pay contractors. For the first time in a long time in Nigeria, local contractors have to go and carry placards. These are indications of fiscal indiscipline, with profound respect. So how you have that policy cohesion, policy coherence, policy coordination in ensuring that while you are making the gains, they are, penetrating into the economy and making the requisite impacts are very crucial. Because no matter how well we want to talk about how the economy is doing, the moment you see that you are running three budgets, there's the argument from the government that it's not 3 budgets, but we all know that we have about 3 concurrent budgets, whether it is capital or OPEX. Bottom line, we have multiple budgets that we are running within the same year. Is an indication of the kind of performance we are doing with regards to the fiscal. The CBN is doing a lot of work hedging against the devaluation of the naira. But the fiscal side is struggling. And unless we are able to address those fundamental issues, then we will not be able to have traction. And like myself, GITC Global Investment, and other economists have said, the growth rate, as good as it sounds, 4.4%, is not good enough to actually take us to the $1 trillion economy as quick as possible, which is what will actually really turn around the economy. We need at least a growth rate of from 7.7% to something about 8.something% consistently for the next 3 to 4 years. So there's a lot of work to be done. Interestingly, we have an election year. Politicking will take a chunk of the time of the administration. But I hope that they will also recognize that the impact of the value on the economy should be their biggest selling point as the incumbent government, to hedge against the opposition while they are doing the politicking, so that people will really appreciate that they are doing something that is making sense to them, not just for the macroeconomic indicators or for economic analysts like us.
Thank you. Now, when we talk about fiscal discipline, we often speak about the multiple budgets that the federal government is running concurrently. But also when we talk about fiscal discipline, we must talk about the lower tiers of government. I believe we're seeing some of the state budgets and what they are budgeting towards. Do you believe that this gap, particularly when it comes to local governments and the lack of release of funds directly to local government, do you think this gap, not just the fiscal discipline, but also the accountability of having governance close to the local levels, do you think that that is part of what is preventing Nigeria's growth from accelerating?
Thank you for bringing in the local government aspect of it, and that forms part of the fiscal discipline as well, because fiscal discipline is also addressing the constitutional provision for allocation of resources, and the local government is a crucial part of that. And for many years, that particular arm of government, if you like, or sector of government has been used as a special purpose vehicle for slime, for corruption, or for alienating the people. So I agree, but also taking it from a broader perspective, in terms of governance, the monies that have been allocated to the state government, part of which the local government money has been allocated. I am happy to hear that President Tinubu mentioned he did it last year by bringing back the local government conversation onto the table, pushing and making sure the Supreme Court has taken a firm position of that. And 2 weeks ago, he stated clearly that, at the beginning of the year, he's going to be very bullish to ensure that it is executed. We hope that will be done as soon as possible, because we need to detach the local government from this chokehold of the governors. I dare say, like I consistently say, 60% of the non-performance of Nigerian leadership, successive administration in the Fourth Republic has been because of the lack of performance or lack of focus of the state governors. So if we are able to detach the local government. We can be able to focus on the local government as well and give them those responsibilities and ensure they deliver because they are the closest, to the common man in Nigeria. So you are correct. But of course, it is also part of the fiscal issues we need to deal with. Local government administration is a critical success factor to the success of our fiscal framework and fiscal policy.
Now, regarding Nigeria's investment climate, how closely linked are governance standards, such as the rule of law, transparency and accountability, to Nigeria's struggle with capital flights and weak FDI inflows?
Governance and legal framework, especially the confidence on our judiciary, are also critical success factors, Temi Tope. When people want to bring in their money into your country, they want to make sure that, first of all, their money is safe. Secondly, they will be able to rein in their profits and they will also be safe while they are conducting their businesses. Safe in terms of security, physical security, infrastructure security, and also safe peradventure there are issues that run into legal, challenges, that they are sure that the judiciary or there are legal frameworks that will protect everybody. Last year, we heard this very embarrassing situation, Q1 of last year and Q3 of 2024, where Chinese companies were busy, taking over our assets in the UK, presidential planes in UK and all that, due to defaults of some of our local agreements with some state governments in Nigeria. Now, that speaks volume with regards to investor confidence when coming into a country. Insecurity, Domitokwe Adishu, are very crucial. They play crucial role in terms of investor appetite to stay in the country for those that are there and for new ones to come in. So it's very important we situate security. We all know what Donald Trump said 3-4 weeks ago. And even though government may downplay it, but it's very true. If somebody is doing SWOT analysis and doing analysis to business, case to come into Nigeria, and President Donald Trump or his administration designates Nigeria as a country of concern, that is a red flag. And from a risk perspective, people will either not come or they will taper down the volume of their investment portfolio. These are very crucial points to take note of while we are moving into 2026. But on the good side, we had a lot of what we call investment mobilization by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu since he came into power, moving around the country, mobilizing FDIs and funds. The recent one is what is happening in the UAE. I saw the Honorable Minister of Investment and Trade, Jimoke Odu, speaking about it. But what is also important is that in 2026, I want to see a lot of activation of those mobilizations, into the economy, particularly the agri sector, the manufacturing sector, because those are the sectors that will actually drive the economy. If you look at the performance of investment and trade in 2025, we saw a lot of performance in financial services. We saw a lot of portfolio investments, big-time investments, a lot of them. If I can refer to my note, about $720 million by Q3 last year. But interestingly, 3.1 billion, representing 54%, is talking about the banking sector. But about 2.3%, which is $129 million, production and manufacturing. So you can see the skewing of the numbers, where we should focus on to actually get the actual real, growth, in the economy. But that being said, I think what is critical is in our execution. What is critical is also in ensuring we strengthen our institutions and then dealing with insecurity and perception management. Very important. We need to present ourselves as a country that investors can rely on, because investments are mostly long-term, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. One will be sure that in the next 10 years, 30 years, there won't be policy acrobatism, there won't be policy inconsistency, there will be security and all that. And more importantly, while we are signing up these agreements, they should be win-wins. They should take care of us as Nigerians, not just for the portfolio investors.
Thank you. And, I appreciate that you've brought up the discrepancy between financial services, the banking sector, and sectors such as manufacturing and agriculture, which also employ a lot of Nigerians if those sectors are invested in and if they're improved upon. There is a bit of a multiplier effect there. But taking that into consideration and also taking into consideration our perception and management, as you said, how important are events like the World Economic Forum in Davos?
Well, it's very important because while sometimes we think that we put the makeup, I will borrow from the ladies, you put a very good makeup and you go to the party. People actually have their own dashboards. They have representations in Nigeria. The world is a global village. So to the president, to the team, everybody knows practically what you are going to tell them. And they are also able to separate from the wheat from the chaff. And as the saying goes somewhere, putting a lipstick on a pig will not change what it is. So what is important is for us to be very serious and conscious of how we behave and what we do in country and out there. And that we are able to follow up our talk with action. We are able to follow up our, promises with delivery. As someone who is a very good friend of the Gulf region, having worked there and done business for a very long time, one of the subsidiaries of Global Investment and Trade Company, by the way, is a company in the United Arab Emirates. Borrowing from the Arabs, they will say, too much talk, ma fi fa'ida. That is, too much talk, no substance or no action. So what is important is while we are at the World Economic Forum, we should know that any serious, and it's a convergence of very serious people who are coming and well-informed people. So how we speak and how we engage, we should be conscious of the fact that people have already taken notes. We are there to also reassure them of the issues that are there will be resolved and how they will be resolved, and that whatever is coming on the table is what will happen in country or in terms of the agreements we have. Because the backsliding, the speeches that are going on there are just on the surface. People have already made their decisions before they go to the World Economic Forum, WEF. They already know what they want to do. They just want to hear from you a last word for them to take their final decision. So it is very important also for us to speak about the performances of the FDI mobilizations we have done, why they have not yielded fruit, and why the new ones that should come in play. And to talk to the world about our economic strategy, our foreign policy, so that we make new friends and consolidate on the relationships we have, and also assuage the fears of those allies that are a bit worried and are sitting on the fence.
No, but I'm a bit curious, Malam Yusuf. Can Nigeria realistically improve governance and investor confidence while simultaneously navigating intense political competition ahead of 2027?
It is possible if there is the political will, Temitope. What is the vision of the president? What is the intent of the leadership, not just at the federal, but at the subnational? Let's not forget that the governors also go out there to engage multilateral organizations, to engage countries and have partnership with a view to catalyzing growth of the economy or sustaining or consolidating or upscaling. So the consciousness of that is very important for leadership. You can do that pari passu because that is what they sign up for. That is what they campaign for. You are supposed to come and do the politics, address the fundamental issues, address the emerging issues while you are growing the economy. There is no excuse for that. The only thing that will happen is the partners and the people you are trying to bring in will see through the facade and not come, or will promise and you mobilize $1-2 trillion portfolio, but at the end of the day, you are only able to activate $200 million portfolio. That's not performance. Performance is not measured by events and activities. Performance is measured by results and impacts. So to that extent, also, those portfolio engagements and those engagements we are trying to bring in the economy, by the way, trade and investment is the lifeblood of any country. Those are only able to come if people see that you are serious in country, because they know, like I said earlier, what is going on in the country. So apart from the perception management, apart from the communication strategy, what are the realities in the country? in terms of the challenges, in terms of the achievement, and then what are the opportunities? Are those opportunities realizable? Because the other day, while you are talking about it, what you said is profound because, at the aftermath of this last issue with the declaration by President Donald Trump, the Northern Governors Forum sat down and started and made some key declarations, including saying they are going to suspend mining activities. That blanket statement is a negative one with profound respect to the governors. We have brought in investors who are bringing about $1.something trillion, dollars investment, total investment into Nigeria. They have done the proper thing. They have come through the proper channels. They have started making investments. And then you come in as leaders and say they should suspend mining, a blanket statement, rather than to suspend illegal mining. Now, these kind of narratives send wrong signals. Talking about communication strategy, talking about perception management with regards to, are you solving this situation? Because if an investor is bringing in $800 million and you tell him they are going to suspend activities of mining for company B, at the end of the day, I would rather, sit on my money until I see how it pans out later. So it's very important that we are serious, we deliver what we promise, and we do politics for pursue execution and performance and impacts. Not just for Nigeria, but internationally, like I said, it's a global village.
Thank you very much, Malam Baba Yusuf. As you said, we need execution. It's very, very important for Nigerians. Thank you for joining us this morning and for your brilliant submissions as always.